Good morning. Hello. Happy Friday. Hello, Sheriff. Hello, Sharif, and hello, Xanax. How you both doing today? Um. Oh, hello, Duda. What the heck is wrong with my pronunciation? I don't know words today. Dota. Hello. How are you doing today? You took a vacation today? Oh, that's nice. Vacation days are always nice, especially when they're on Fridays. Apparently, my ability to pronounce words, at least if I'm talking really fast, is significantly lower today. So I guess that's how you know it's a Friday. I'll have to slow myself down, otherwise I'll just like say everything wrong. All right. So let's see. Is there anything interesting? Well, so on Discord, uh, so on Discord, Stacking shared an article. I guess it's less an article, more of a GitHub repo. Looks like Microsoft released some Windows drivers crates that gonna help. So it's not for necessarily just like normal development on Windows, but it's for if you're writing a driver for Windows, you can now write it in Rust, or at least there's a lot better chance that you can write it in Rust. So it looks like there's bindings to a lot of the core stuff in here. So this is one of the things that they've been, I think, working on in private for a long time, and I think it's just been released or at least opened up. Yeah, 10 hours ago was their first release for this. So this is going to be pretty big. Sylvie, why don't you come over here instead of just meowing? So yeah, anyways, this is gonna be really interesting. Xanax, you're frustrated moving from Canton Zurich to I've St. Gallen. I don't know how to pronounce that. And I can't find a good location. You hate moving. You did it 7 times already, and you're always frustrated. Moving, the act of moving is frustrating to me. Uh, there's been quite a few times that I've like broken several things with movers to sort of like, or just like having to pack everything up and move it around. It sucks. Finding a new place, yeah, that can be rough too. So sorry about that. I hope that you find a place soon. Okay, so this is definitely interesting. Um, Today, so I was thinking about like Redis and what we've been working on, and I realized I probably should break this up into like three different things, or maybe yeah, three different lessons. It would be or like maybe three different videos. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. Basically, connecting to Redis from Axum, connecting to Postgres using SQLX, and then using both Redis and SQLX together. I think that's I think that's something that would be really nice. So we already have most of the article for connecting to Redis, so I kind of want to just do that. So let's do I guess this will be connecting to Redis. All right, so to change this around, let's update our title. This will be connecting to Redis from Axum. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to describe what Redis is, connect to Redis in an Axum application, and then I guess like use Redis to, I guess like create and get. So insert and get data from Redis. Okay, what is Redis? Redis is a fast in-memory key value store that servers often use to cache user and session data. If we need a way to store simple key value data and are okay with it not persisting across reboots, then Redis is a good choice. If you have Docker installed, we can set up a Redis instance locally with the command docker run blah blah blah. For more information on running Redis in Docker, see the page on Docker Hub. Let's see. Then skip that. Connecting to Redis and Axum. Okay, so we start with the template. Okay, so I was thinking I might want to add Redis into the template. So just having this here might not be helpful unless I like could go to a very specific branch or something. So I'm thinking about removing this and just saying like we're starting with a hello world. With an Axum, a hello world Axum. Or like just a very bare bones with a bare bones Axum setup. I have a video for that. I might want to put that out there and just like have that be more public. And then I can link to that everywhere. Or I can record another one and have that be like the actual, like just a little stream one. So start with the bare bones Axum setup. Or we could just like say, yeah, I could just like build everything too. I don't know. It feels. I don't have a good place to like link to this. So we're gonna start with a hello world Axum. We start with a hello world Axum and create a module to handle the connection to Redis and the queries. It can be nice to separate out the database logic into its own crate, so we'll be creating one called Redis Connect. I mean, I could also call it like Redis underscore or something, but I don't. That doesn't feel right. Uh, Redis Connect. We need something after the Redis since there is a Redis crate. We don't want to confuse. We don't want to confuse our crate for the I guess like for the Redis. From the root of project, run. Okay, so cargo new to create. To create the submodule, create the module. To create the crate, I guess then we'll just do run the following from the root of the project. Okay, so cargo new library Redis Connect. I will need to update the cargo toml file to be aware of this new crate. So we have this entire thing. So we have Redis Connect, members. Okay, we have that. Now we can set up the new Redis Connect crate to connect to Redis and create get and set functions to store and retrieve data from the Redis store. For this example, we're putting everything into the Redis Connect live.rs file. We'll need to add some crates to Redis Connect in order to connect to Redis and create a database pool. As of the writing of this article, we aren't aware of any Redis specific pools, so we're using a generic pool called BB8 Redis, which is based on BB8. Add BB8 Redis. Now we can create a pool and connect to it in Redis Connect live.rs. So something also I was thinking about yesterday, or sort of came to me, is I'm creating. I just have a pool with a single connection to it, right? Should I, or connection to Redis, should I create multiple connections to Redis in here? I want to test that. I want to play with that a little bit. So let's try that here. Yeah, so here's our Redis connection thing. So I create a Redis manager. Now, if I wanted to do something with this, right? So if I do Redis manager, oh, I can't really do anything from it, can I? I want to go look at how this is supposed to be used. Or maybe a better way to think about this would be, okay, if I want to set, I get a connection set. If I try to get two connections at the same time, would that be an appropriate test? To see whether or not like, and then I can like potentially try to like do multiple connections and throw that in here. I think I can build. Can I do more? Or is that it? Or does it not matter? Am I like not? Am I concerned for the wrong reasons? I guess like my other connection. So I wonder if this is going to cause a. I wonder if it's either going to unwrap or if it's going to deadlock. I could see it deadlocking. So I just set the same value. We'll await. Those unwraps should be fine. And then if I don't bother, oh, this should be other connection. Okay, so Rust will probably be happy with this, but I can't imagine that uh, it's not going to cause problems. Oh, how did I? Okay, that's cool. I did Alt N instead of Control N by accident. And then that opened up to the left, and then that now makes this, huh, interesting. Um, Alt N opened a new pane, but it opened a new pane to the left of this one. Interesting. So it sort of like auto figures out where I think that I want it, which made it nice, I guess. But okay, you're running now, which means I can grab Insomnia. We want to do, okay, so it's probably the post, right? And it was like set it. Okay, it's not set it. Save it. Save it all together. Yeah. Okay, that's what I was afraid of. So I think we only have a single thing in the pool. So if I try to get two connections at the same time, that deadlocks. So this is now just waiting for me to be done with the other connection, which I'm not going to be done until this connection is done. So it's just going to time out at 30 seconds. Yeah, and it basically calls on wrap because it took too long. Now, is there a way for me to add another connection to the pool? So this would be what, BB8? Is it Redis BB8 or yeah, it's this one. I wonder what Builder has. Or it's it's off pool. Nice. Okay, so this is just actually just BB8. Okay, so we look at pool. We have, oh, you're only allowed to have a single managed connection. Oh, interesting. Okay. So shouldn't there be a way for me to get multiple connections into the pool, or am I thinking about this wrong? I would previously think that like with Postgres, the pool then manages like 3, 5, 10, however many connections that it we've configured that the database can allow at the same time to come in. But with a pool, when I'm building it, is there something off builder? Okay, so we could do new builder. The pool will not be returned until it has established its configured minimum number of connections or it times out. Okay, until its minimum number of connections. I could do min idle maybe? And then I can do pool, and then I think it's going to try to do multiple connections based upon this one. Is that how that works? So I don't get a second one. Okay, so before we do build, I do min idle, sets the minimum idle count. This could be, okay, it's gonna be a sum of like I want 5 connections, let's say. Then I build with Redis Manager and it attempts to use the Redis Manager to connect 5 times. I think that's the idea. And then I can get then maybe I can do this. It couldn't connect to the server. Wait, really? You're running. Oh, did the server not start because it's in the middle of attempting to connect to Redis? Oh, that could be it. I also, oh yeah, okay. Connection refused. We'll just have Docker stuff up here. Oh, we don't even have Redis open. Well, that would certainly. How did the first one work? Docker start Redis. Stacking. Hello. Good morning. How are you doing today? Okay. Uh, you're on that port. You're running there. You're here. Just go ahead and restart you just in case. How are you doing, Stacking? Also, thanks for that the link to the Microsoft stuff. That was interesting. We reviewed it a little tiny bit earlier. Ooh, that works. Okay. I think that worked. So I set them both here, but that doesn't help because I think it okay, let's set let's change the key. Okay. This is exciting. This is really cool. Let's do key plus key plus one. It's gonna be we're gonna format and we're gonna have the key plus one. Literally that. And so that way we can now then set the same value, but I want key plus one here. So if you work, so I want to be able to hey Zilby, want to come in and hang out? Come on, Zilby. Come here. No, want to go? Okay. You're going to the other side. If I don't think that's what I want to do. Do Docker. Oh wait, was that it? That might have been it. Let's just do it with the name. Why is it Redis Connect? Docker exec it into Redis. Okay. Then we can connect to Redis. Is that not? Twitch Mobile and iOS has introduced a strange bug where it lets you type once and then it just stops responding to touch. Oh, that's a really cool bug. How do they manage that? That seems pretty that seems pretty like basic keyboard interaction. All right, cat time. How did I do this before? I don't. I must have. That must have been the connection I did. So okay, so I'm running Redis that way. It's not Redis. What's the? Well, the container ID is 65C82. So that's that one. So this is what I used last time. So that's great. I mean, like inside of it, can I look at history? No, of course not. What is the command to connect into Redis CLI from here? Is it like Redis CLI? Oh, yeah, it's literally Redis CLI. Okay. So then I want to get and then the key is going to be hello world. So hello, and we get world, right? And then I want hello one, and we have nothing in there. Okay, so now I want to run you. We're going to do hello world, and we should have hello one also. Let's change this around too. So let's do hello Twitch chat. We'll then send. So if I get hello, we get hello Twitch chat, and then hello one Twitch chat. Okay. All right. So what did we do here? This is important. We have set the builder. So by default, this builder pool will give us a single connection to Redis or whatever we're throwing in there, and then it's done, which sucks. But like it's not terrible, but it's perhaps not what you expect. But if we do min idle sum 5, now the pool is going to maintain a minimum of 5 connections to Redis at a time. And so we can now get at the same time 5 connections and not cause a deadlock. That's pretty cool. Okay, so we can now create a pool and connect it with that. This pool will allow us to get the connection to Redis later in our route handlers. Stephen, hello. I was gonna ask how you're doing, but you had a dream where you got fired from your job. Does not sound great. I'm sorry about that. I've had those dreams too. They're stressful, or maybe they're an indication of stress. This pull. You've been applying to so many jobs and you haven't gotten any responses. When you're applying for job, or when you're trying to like get jobs, um, where's your time being spent? Is it like applying for jobs through like LinkedIn or some other like online places? Are you doing more networking? Where's like what's your time breakdown for this? Or is it all or is it all just what what is it? What do I want to say? Is it all like LinkedIn just applications? For some that would be a nightmare, for others that would be a dream. Just like, oh yeah, that's just every day. During COVID times, you were getting so many interviews. Well, so it's the market's weird right now. There's some companies are rehiring engineers from the ones that they laid off. So basically, companies hired way more than they needed during the pandemic, and then they like, oh crap, this is really expensive, and so they let a lot go. But it turns out they let too much go, And I think the idea, especially for like some of these larger companies, is, we can just rehire them later if we need to. Let's just let's just like let's just get rid of everybody that we think maybe we like is not like providing lots of value, and then when we run into trouble, we'll just rehire the ones that we had problems with, and so now they're rehiring again. So I've been hearing that like companies are rehiring, but they're hiring for the positions that they uh, left too much on, which means that they might be trying to hire the same people back, or like very specific skill sets. So that makes it weird. Super System, hello. How are you doing today? You heard Salesforce is doing just that. I wouldn't be. I think a lot of them are doing that. I think all of them are doing that. That being said, if you're willing to work outside of tech, the non-tech industries have been on a boom in the last year or so, and they're hiring like crazy. So if it it's those jobs are weird if you're used to tech jobs, because they're like you're potentially not going to work as a team. You might be solo, you might be on like a team of two. It like really small, but there's so many more of those companies than tech companies, and so you can usually get a job with them. And then you're sort of like doing your thing, helping them out. And most companies, even if they don't think that they're tech companies, are are essentially tech companies. They just don't know it. So that might be a good way to go. Something else, if you're not doing a lot of networking, now's the time. It's I think there's a lot of places that need people, and they don't necessarily know how to find them. And if you're going to LinkedIn, all you're really doing is you're adding your resume into like the pool, the bucket where a lot of other resumes are just being thrown in there. There's nothing to differentiate you. So, like, yeah, that's important to do, but there's going to be more. It has to be supplemented by a lot of networking, like maybe reaching out and trying to like find connections that work in these companies, and then they can help you get your resume seen, as opposed to just the bucket of resumes. So yeah, if you're having trouble getting hired or getting even just interviews, that's like that to me that means there's a problem happening at the like your resume being visible stage. You have a friend who works at Meta, but you would feel weird asking for a referral. Why? Just I would just do that. There's just like just ask, or just like ask them for like if you feel weird asking directly for a referral, then in that case ask for help. What would you do in my situation? And then I might just volunteer, or just say like I would ask me for a referral, and then you're like, okay, well then I'm asking you for a referral now. So you can ask them for advice like as a mentor, and then see what they say. Megiora, hello. How are you doing today? What tech am I sitting on in my day job? So my day job, I'm doing. Let's see. We for the web stuff we use Express with JavaScript, and more TypeScript these days. We use Vue.js, uh, so like TypeScript whenever we can. So TypeScript, obviously some JavaScript here and there. Uh, Express, Vue, um, like the normal HTML, CSS, that kind of stuff. Also for deploying out, we are on AWS a lot. I use a Pulumi to control AWS with infrastructure as code. So I guess that's the tech that I'm sitting on. For like databases and that kind of stuff, those are boring, but like, MySQL, Postgres, that kind of stuff. Some McDonald's are paying $25 an hour. You'd flip burgers, then go home after 8 hours with no responsibilities at the end of the day. The problem with that stacking is that we would get bored, and what would end up happening is either you take out that boredom at your day job and you attempt to like just start making changes and tweaks and other things, which is not going to work if you're flipping burgers. um if you're a manager, you might be able to get away with that, but that's the thing, is like if you're a manager, you're probably not just going home at the end of the day. Then you have lots of responsibilities. So in the end, it either you're flipping burgers in order to fund something interesting that you're doing after work, or it's just an interim job where you're finding another job, which case it's going to like scratch that itch of like doing interesting hard things. Rise of Ninja, hello. How are you doing today? It is Friday. Yes. I'm not okay, so no, I am not working on the VR myself. I work closely. I work closely with my the coworker that I have, who's the other engineer. He is a Unity dev, so he does all the stuff with Unity. I mean, I put on a headset and I get in and test things out. But I'm more of like the API side. So like the headsets will send out API requests to our code, then store that into a database. So I expose like GraphQL interfaces and other stuff, and do that. Poor guy with the Unity news. I I feel that, like with many things that have happened recently, the Unity news is one of those things where is it good? No. Is the reaction to it overblown? Yes. I think that you should be putting pressure on Unity to like make the changes that they've now been making because of it. But there's no reason. There's never a reason to do death threats to any employees or anybody else working at Unity. It doesn't matter if it's like the CEO and he personally wrote in saying, I hate Unity developers and I want them all to pay. It doesn't matter. It's just like that. It never ever ever should get to death threats, because at that point you're losing the ability to make actual meaningful change. So yeah, it's just don't go there. Just put on pressure of like, I will switch my entire company stack over unless you change. Like that, I think, is a valid pressure to put on. You have a question. You want to store a lot of data in CSV, so like comma separated values, right? And you want to be able to append to it. You cannot use S3 because you cannot append. You have to re-upload. You're thinking of making a service which takes in data and writes to CSV file in a block storage. The issue is you have to search through the file to find line number. Suppose the ID call. So, do you think I can create a perfect binary search for this? It will skip blocks of bytes. Um, yes, you. Well, okay. So for the question itself, can you create a perfect binary search for this? Yes. The way that binary trees or binary any data structure works that makes the search part of it perfect and really good is the sorting. So generally speaking, what you can do is create a series of either services or functions or anything that basically inserts into it, but you do need to validate that it's sorted at all times, and you cannot make sure anything else goes. Unity will make an announcement later today. Crossing fingers, the death threat was internal to the company. Oh, it was internal. Um, you think it was a PR move? Well, it was. If that was a PR move, that's a stupid thing. But I would say like I wouldn't as ever necessarily go straight to like, okay, I will bet it's a PR move type thing, because that lessens it, and it makes it so that if somebody does receive a death threat, it basically allows people and companies to then explain that away, and that I don't think is cool. So I would say like, you know what? If you're going to claim that, you're going to get the full treatment of that. Probably a legit threat, but who knows? I mean, there was like I think that all threats at that level should be taken seriously. Do I do any embedded system stuff? No, I don't. It's embedded stuff is cool and fun. But I don't have any projects to work on it, and like I have these other projects that I'm working on that are maybe a bit more, they're taking all my time. So I don't really get a time to like work on fun stuff like that. Maybe someday we'll do some like exploration stuff with it. Oh, and Sylvie's lying down. Let's change. There. Now you don't get flashed with the bright lights. Oh, I missed, did I miss something about integrating Rust? Oh yeah, yeah. So you haven't thought about Rustifying my API stack? I so there's a couple reasons for not doing Rust at work, especially like so at my company, we don't have that many developers. We're a startup. We're super small. We I've just recently I did it like an announcement here on Twitch, but I haven't like done it officially. Um, so I should probably like do that and record it. Maybe we'll do that today. But anyways, the putting Rust is too expensive for a startup. And I don't mean like it's too expensive to run Rust, because that would actually be cheaper, right? It's more of it's too expensive in the long term. It'd be really hard to hire Rust devs at a startup that can't really afford it. Hello, Priven. Plus one. How are you doing today? Expensive to hire. So the problem is that if you want somebody with Rust experience, that person is going to charge a lot. And at that point, like I can't hire them. Like I won't have the budget for it. So then I need to hire somebody who doesn't know Rust and train them on Rust. And the problem that we all know is that Rust takes a little bit longer to learn. And so the question becomes, okay, I can I can uh I can do all these things um without Rust and then be done and making money with it for the company, or I can do all these things, train somebody up, then do more things, and then we can make money with it. Meanwhile, we're losing money by paying two developers while we're trying to onboard. It's like training is really expensive. So it's more of, if you have a bunch of Rust developers who form a startup, that's one thing. That's perfectly fine in a startup. But if you need to hire Rust developers, it's way too expensive right now. That being said, Rust is becoming more popular, right? There's more tutorials and more things and more stuff in Rust out there. It's not going to take too long, probably a few more years, and then we're going to start seeing developers who are just coming out of schools with enough Rust experience that it's like, okay, we can just hire you straight, and you're as cheap as like a Node developer, as a Ruby or Python developer. And then at that point, now Rust is available to use at startups as just anything. So that's the problem, is if I were to switch our stack over to Rust, I would never be able to leave. And if I did, I'd be fucking that company over big time. So I don't, because I care too much about it, and I don't want to be trapped. But yeah, I totally agree with everything you're saying, Priven. Sharif, you suggest to Rise of Ninja. The problem is that you have to turn your data into JSON or binary. Then we fetch. It'll make Redis slow, noticeably slow. Oh yeah, for the CSV thing. Um, yeah, that's a consideration too. What you could do, Rise of Ninja, if you really want to store your data in CSV, and like here's the problem. You're very quickly going to be running into the like really big sort of like no of programming, which is build your like don't build your own database itself, because that's like you're going to start running into that. So if 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 you have like a CSV file and you don't want to like search through it for things because that's where things get really slow, um, then what you might need to do is create like an in-memory database would be best. Load it up once and then wait, and then uh, the other side is you can create like in a Redis database or something. You can create metadata about the data that tells you where to go. Okay, load it up, go skip to this line, and then insert into there. The problem is that at that point in time, you are creating a database essentially with like metadata and other things for searching. At that point, it might be better to just find like just like find a database that does data in the way that you want it to. There's a lot of new databases. Like we're having a boom of databases right now. So this might be a good time to go shopping for something. And apparently there is a big resurgence of like just using Postgres as a base and then building a database on top of that. That could be like one of those could be an interesting choice. And then you turn it into the CSV as needed, and then you store it in some other format. That's probably what I would go, which is exactly not what you're talking about, but probably what I would do. Let's see. Majora, you're teaching software engineers full time. You're still not sure how to introduce Rust in the curriculum. Um, what I did back, I didn't do Rust, but we forced our students to learn something else. Rust was one of the options, but none of them ever took us up on it. What we do is it depends on how long your curriculum is. If it's long enough, so I was doing a 6 month curriculum when I was teaching. It was we did a courage time, so that was 1 week, and we told the students, okay, in courage week or courage time, for 1 week, I want you to by the end of the week, you're going to create an API in something, but it cannot be the same language and it cannot be the same framework. So if you're going to choose like the same language that you're learning in, it has to be like a vastly different framework uh, to like do everything in. And if it's a different language, then obviously everything is different there too. Most students actually did choose different languages, mostly because like we framed it as like, look, if you can actually build an API that does something in a different language than the one you were just taught, and you're just straight out of code school, you have a leg up on every other student graduating at the same time. And so that was cool. We got a lot of people who learned Java, Python. The JavaScript was our primary language, so around there. So Java, Python. We had some C sharp. We had one C plus plus. We had some Ruby. Never had any. Oh, we had a lot of Swift, and we had a lot of what's the Android one? It's like K something. I just forgot the name of it. Kotlin. Yeah, we had a lot of Kotlin too. Basically, it's just that's what we did. We called it courage time. To basically like just go and do that and try something new. So back to the database thing. It's a clever idea, but every time we think of clever ideas, be careful because that usually means we are we are in danger of doing something that somebody else much smarter than us has done a lot. In this case, database creation. Our students start with Java and JS, and then they get some C Sharp, TypeScript, and a little bit of Python for ML, as a little C and assembly. So what you can do is you can basically say, okay, we're going to take a week, and you're going to learn something. Give them like a choice, and it's what you really want them to do is you want to learn how easy it is to learn new things and not be scared of new technology. That's why we called it courage time, is because it's like, oh yeah, if you completely failed by the end to create the API, but you made like you actually showed learning and like attempts for it, then you passed. Like everything was fine. If you just gave up and like went and hid under your desk and just cried yourself to sleep every night, that was a failure, and that didn't work. Yeah, I was gonna say it's databases are going to be cheap to search. It would, yeah, they can be more costly to host, but there are a lot of free databases out there. I would say if you deploy on any like Vercel or something like that, you can get a free Postgres database. If you Mongo has whatever their database, like they have like an entire database for free too that you can get. Um, Bamero, DuckDB. I haven't heard that one. Also, hello. How are you doing today? Do I miss TypeScript? I do miss TypeScript when I'm writing JavaScript. I don't miss TypeScript when I'm writing Rust. I miss Rust when I'm writing TypeScript. I just basically like each level of like type like strength. I'm like, okay, I come on. Why can't I just like have more strength here? Like the idea of a more freeform approach where students can take initiative. That was the entire thing that we were doing, and we think that we got it right near around the end when we all left. Then so then it like happened for one set of students. You're currently paying 1,600 in databases with it, which is bonkers. If you're doing like big database type stuff, like for work type things, that is if that's per month, that is bonkers. But maybe you're using that. I think for my day jobs, we're paying something like $50, maybe like 60 or $70 per month, and that's it. You can't do Helix like this. Like what do you mean? Like is it too much or something else? $1,600 per month plus server $1,500 per month, which we run our workers. Yeah, databases are really expensive. You copy the configs, but it doesn't turn out like mine. Interesting. What part is not running? I do try to use Helix at work. Helix and JavaScript are kind like do work for the most part, but then it just keeps on bothering me because I can't use I need the multiple language servers to really do web development properly. What do you want to know? Um, when I was at Galvanize, I spent 3 years there, 4 years there as an instructor. I didn't go to Galvanize as a student, so it was more so like I was hired on, did instructor, did like anything interesting happen. I mean, interesting to me, maybe interesting to like interesting for here. I don't know. The breadcrumbs don't show up. Do you mean like these, like the inlay type hints? Let's see. I should do this course in Golang too. I don't know Golang. I mean, I'll consider it. I'll write it down. I would probably not do that, mostly due to time constraints. Uh, if 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 this becomes big enough, I could then hire people to do Go, or at least to help me with Go. I'll consider it. I'll consider it. I think there's been like several stories from I think the biggest thing that I've learned from my time at Galvanize, and this is all before, and so this is not a um Galvanize now and Galvanize before are not the same companies anymore. I was there before they acquired Hack Reactor, and I left right when that was happening. I would say back when it was us, we were sort of like doing our own thing in Denver, and what I've learned is that I don't like for profit um, companies, like VC driven education. I kind of don't like VC driven companies too, but especially VC driven education because they constantly try to scale things. Like, okay, we need to make it scale. And as my mentor uh, has told many a VC, we can't scale education. Not really. We can give you like 50% returns, like that. I think that's as best as we can get. And 50% returns, like for someone like you or me, that's fantastic. Can you imagine like being able to like make 50% returns on your investment into your own company doing education? When like you'd be set for life. But a VC doesn't see it that way. They see it needs to be exponential returns. And you have around 10 years to do it. So yeah, that's I guess like an interesting thing that I learned while at Galvanize. You thought Helix had support for all SPs needed for web dev, or I'm missing. So they it works with them all, but the problem is that I want to work with like multiple at the same time and like in the same files, and that doesn't work. Like okay, I want to use or at least it's too like it's probably way more complex to get it going. Everything that I've seen is that either I need multiple LSPs running at the same time, or I need the file save reporter or whatever they're calling it running. So that way it tells the LSP to like, okay, now go and redo your thing again. Once one or both of those are in, which I think they're both going to be in this next big release, then I think it's just going to start doing what we want to do. for web dev. So like I can get TypeScript to give me the type hints, but I can't get ESLint to reformat it because TypeScript and ESLint are in like two different things. So I can't actually get the formatter to happen on save, which is to me is like, okay, that needs to be like a really big part of my working. I need that for web dev. Rust Analyzer just works. So it's just like, come on. Dodie, hello. How are you doing today? I know I'm missing chat also, so sorry about that. You haven't been watching streams in entirety, but it'd be nice if you considered Axum making use of multiple DTO types rather than your typical singular type like a to-do app. There's a big difference how to use the tools around Axum state. DTO, I'm trying to remember. What does DTO stand for? I want to make sure I have it right in my mind. Data transfer object. So yeah, okay. So multiple data types that are returned. Oh, in like a single return state. Yeah, the way to do that is I think the I think I have a plan on doing that as part of this course. But basically, if you create like a struct that can hold other structs, then it can be like, okay, we're gonna like dump multiple things in here as long as it turns into proper JSON, you're fine, and it'll just uh, serialize into JSON. Um, but yeah, I haven't really done that in projects. I'm also trying to think like, how often do I do different? Well, I guess like using something like a JSON schema or something like that. That's usually what I would do. For something more than a typical simple app, more real world. Yeah, I guess like my when I do stuff in real world these days, I do a lot more microservicey type things, which means that I am actually just doing single data types in the real world. So I think that would be more like monolith, right? Of like, okay, we're like these apps are doing very vastly different stuff than these apps over here. Um, I used to do that a long time ago. I don't do that anymore. And with REST, you're generally only returning one data type at a time, anyways, right? I also do a lot of like, I've always only done RESTful apps. Hmm. I'll have to think like I'll have to think about like how to get that going where like why I would want to do a return for multiple apps. I need to come up with like the right scenario for it. Something that I've learned in education is that if I force something but it's like too forced, it's not helpful. In C Sharp and Java, you have a model that's your database schema, and then you have a DTO, which they call your DTO. Okay. Your return type. Okay. So there is a it can be helpful to have a okay, so basically a database with multiple tables that you may or may not need joins, etc. At the front end, you might need user API, to do API, give me a list of to do owned by user X. Okay, okay, I got it. So you're not only returning just users, but you're returning like sometimes users with the other stuff. Yeah, there is a I was thinking about doing something like that with I don't know if it'd be like repository pattern, uh I like the idea of having a models. So um, we can just do something in here because it's a temporary project anyways. Let's create something. If I create a, I don't know if I can do a, let's do that here. So go to source. Um, okay, so we're going to talk about models and other things. Not necessarily like domain models, but like if I think about if I think about it as like data models. So like I want a primary, like let's say I'm doing like a games locker type thing where we have like different like video games, board games, other types of games. I also maybe want to, this is like an app that I've always wanted to build but never had time to build. So let's create this first. So we're gonna take models mod.rs. Is that not in here? Oh, where am I? I'm in, okay. Oh, I'm in Redis Connect? Wait a second. I don't see it. Did I? Oh, CD take. Okay. I didn't notice that it didn't work. Okay. I probably should remove that other mod. There should not be a mod in here. There we go. That's the reason why I couldn't find it. Okay, models mod. Uh, we'll let that go. Is this Vim? No, this is Helix. Helix is made with it's made with Rust. It's like a competitor to Vim. It's a very early on. So I guess like the models that I'm using here, this is something that I've been like going back and forth on, especially with Rust because Rust changes the game around a little bit. Which is like the super strong type system is great. I want sort of like a mega type for coming in, and then I want individual types for going out. And then the problem is like they're all models, but they're not necessarily like, maybe it's sort of like a weird combination of those. I don't know what the right name for this is. Maybe it's named properly and I just don't know what the right, like the industry standard name is. But let's say I'm making a games locker application. So this would be a scenario. We're creating a games locker to store, to allow us to store games. But I also want to store like uh, I want us to store like maybe where we own games. I also want to like choose what to play, and then also I like to watch let's plays of games, but only games that I have already played. So then like to store, okay, like let's plays of games. So then like help me choose what let's play to watch. Are they even called let's plays anymore? Like I feel like that's what it was back at the beginning. So here's two different domains essentially, sort of together in the same application. We have like essentially Twitch slash YouTube videos and VODs and like playlists. And then also we have the games themselves. And then perhaps like to add in here, we want notes on games to like help us play through them. So that would be now three essentially little domains. So like actively playing it, what we inventory, actively playing, and like consuming and entertainment, that kind of thing. So coming in, if I was to say like, okay, when we're creating like a new game, I might want a pub struct. We'll just call this a game. And then that would include things like, okay, well, I have like the name of the game. So that's a string. But then if this is coming in, I want this like coming in from when I'm creating a new game, when I'm updating a game, pretty much anything like that. So then like, then if I'm updating it, this can't be a just an always here. This has to be an option. So everything in here is going to end up being an option. So game name, so like name, we have like, where we like locate like a platform, but that might be something like an option game platform. So now we have a pub enum. So this might be something like we have PC. We have, or it might even be like Steam, Epic, Switch, something else like that. We might have for this game, we might have let's see, a like to watch in like what a streamer or a YouTube like person is. So a content creator. So this would be a struct. I don't know if this is like answering the question or at all, or if I'm like just parallel to it and I'm answering like a different question in my own head. That's sometimes like hard with the text to brain format. So this might be like, again, I have a name string. I have like the URI. That might be another string. So then you are going to be a content creators, which might be like a vec of, again, it's probably going to be like an option with a vec of content creator. So if I do something like this, then every time something is coming into the system, it's going to be a game. Unfortunately, it's all options, but we can use middleware to sort of like know which ones are there, and then I can do impulse on this to say like, okay, get this game out, and it can error out if we don't have all the things with like creating a new game, for example. Like I could potentially even throw in here, we have the ID, which again is going to be like an option I64 because it's coming from the database. But then we have what's going out, right? And I might put all these into their own files because this is going to get pretty big over time. So now going out, I want to say, I want to return a, I want to turn a new game out. And so that might be, okay, well, I have, this will be its own thing in here. So it'll be a temporary type. So pub struct like game response. And this one will be the one that I implement into response on. And I can import game response from game. So I can just take a game and into that. And then anytime I'm passing anything around, like a game type thing from one function to another or outwards, it's always a game. And then so at the edges, it's a game. And then it's at the very end when it goes out to the user, it's a game response. And so like a game response wouldn't have content creator. So I might have a content creator response too. I'm still having a game, and then I just sort of grab different things, and then I send that out. So this would be a translation layer, where right before you do something with it, you translate it, and then we use into, so we import from to sort of change them around. Does this help at all, or is it too hard to sort of imagine? I might have to actually like build something like this as like a hey, let's like build an app type thing. which maybe I should have time for that after after we do like the first iteration of the project, and we can maybe start looking into that. Yes, it's making sense. Just thought this would make a good example. Yeah, I okay, good. Basically create a unique response for each API that is needed. Yes. Um the the interesting thing is when you create those types. So I would what my mentor has taught me is create the mega type at the beginning. So it's like, okay, we know we want a game, we know we want all these things. Create that as like a model first, and then create the little subtypes as needed later on. And then this is also a way that we can get away with users. So like a user thing, like a user coming in, is going to have something like a let's see, we're going to have like a username. So I have an option of a string. We're going to have a password. It's an option with a string. When I respond with this, I definitely like I want to make sure there's no password going back out to the user. Even if I somehow accidentally grab it from the database and it's back into the app in memory, it's still a service that's technically better than at least sending it back out to the user. So I can then do something like pub struct user response. Um, this will have something like, so we're going to put in an ID here. So I might have something like DB ID. I might, if I use something like auth0, I might have like auth0 ID. And then here, user response. All we really care about. We have the pub DB ID. This is a string. It is not optional. We have pub username. And that's a string. And that's it. This is all we get. And now I can do an impl from. I want to take a from a user for user response. So this is going to be a user is the user. I want to now return a user response. DBID. Well, so either I do a from or I can do a try from. That's actually that might be better. Let's do that. Do an impl. Try from user. Type error. So this can be any type of error that we want. So this could be like, hey, my error is going to be while I'm in Axum. Maybe I want something like something that implements into response. But like maybe that's just going to be a tuple type here, which is going to be a status code, and then some like standard, like we could just do a string in this case. But perhaps like I have like a standard error object that I could then use here that I've created. And now we can say, okay, try from. So I want to do let some ID is going to be equal to self dot db id. Oh, sorry, it's user db id. Else I want to return, we're gonna have status code, internal server error. So like it might be an internal server error. This is going out, so it probably is. And then like there was an error. There was an error, like, creating the user. Or something like that. There was an error, please try again. There's an error. Please try again later. But then for myself, I could do a tracing error and say, missing database ID when responding, when like creating user response. So now I can get the information of like what happened, why it happened, where it happened. I then tell this, this needs to be an error. I can tell this to our API, our client. It's like, hey, something's wrong here. Of course, like then I have, okay, so I have that ID. I can get the username is exactly the same thing, right? So let's and then I wouldn't actually call this a DB ID. I would probably call this just an ID. Username equals, we'll just do user dot username, else do the same error, and we'll just panic. Or maybe I'll just throw a to-do in here. That, and then finally we can now return with okay. We're doing a self. And we have the ID and we have the username. And so now I have a safe way to turn this back into a response, and I'm checking the types. I know exactly what's going to go out, so I can never accidentally leak what I don't want to leak. As like I'm just saying, hey, this has to be a user response. So this is that translation layer between anything that's handing it to me. So if I'm creating a new user, so I'm getting user back from the database, so I get that ID. I'm like, okay, extract what I need from there and then send it out. If for some reason I'm creating a user or something else from some other method that's not a database, I'm also now extracting that from whatever whatever the big object is, validating that I have the information that I need, and then sending that out too. And then the route handler is just going to say, okay, I have this user. I'm now going to try into the user response. If it's an error, I already have the error code. I can just question mark that. Otherwise, okay, I've got that. Send that on up. This is my current thought on how we can do, how we can basically do that in Axum. It's a lot more work, but it I think it provides us the most flexibility and the most safety at the same time. I think it's a good balance of that. All right. What were we working on? Have I answered everybody? Did I miss any chats? If I did, rechat it. I'll see it again. In the meantime, what were you doing over here? We were writing this thing out. This pull will allow us to get us the connection to Redis later in one of our route handlers. However, as it is, we will only be able to have a single single route handler connecting to Redis at the same time. If we have multiple requests to insert or get data, we'll end up, if we have multiple requests to insert or get data, we'll end up waiting for this connection to become free. We can change that by adding more connections to the pool. Rise Ninja, you just implemented the CSV idea, working flawlessly. Basically saving the start off set and then fetching the number of lines after that, how many user wants. Nice. It's nice when that kind of stuff just works out. Plus, that's something you can test the heck out of and write like tons of tests around, so that way you can hopefully reduce the number of bugs that you run into when users start doing weird things. You know, Ryzen Ninja, if you're able to work with disk drives, just fine. You know, something I constantly forget about, but maybe would be good for this too. What about using SQLite? So you get the power of a database, but it's free because it's also just a file. Or at least it's no more expensive than a file. That might be a good choice too. Okay, so we can get that by adding more connections to the pool. This is we can do this by telling BB8 to let's see, what have I? True, but the user wants data in CSV. You'll have to export an extra step, and also I'm directly reading the data from CSV and showing up an API. Oh, well, yeah, if for the most part you're doing that, then that's fine. Am I buying the dip? I don't really do investments, so not really, no. I'm too busy working on this type of stuff. Like investment type stuff, if I were to get into that, I would need to like actually do a lot of research and do that kind of stuff. So that's not me. Well, I mean, if I should, but it's gonna take me too much time to do that. I'll let somebody else do that. I mean, I could, but I'm still probably not going to because I would still want to do lots of research before I would like spend money into that. So, and I don't have time for that right now. So maybe sometime in the future, but not now. Okay, we can do this by telling BB8 to, and then up here, this is right, to set the minimum number of connections to maintain to something more than one. Here, let's set the minimum number of connections to 5. Okay. And take you and update you. Okay, so we create a Redis manager, and then I set, yeah, this is all one line. BB8 Redis, BB8 pool builder, min idle sum 5. Okay, perfect. If you want to, so is there a way for us to test this? I don't think we've done any of the queries yet. Okay. So we're not going to connect to Postgres yet. Okay, so setting up Axum state. Yeah, the next thing would be setting up Axum state. Let's see, so source miles main. So I want to, where do I want to put this? I'm doing like a very basic version of this right now, and I think when we do the video, I'll probably put them in their own folders and make it like more appropriate. Okay, so we have you. So I could create a state here. So pub struct app state. You need to derive clone. Let's throw in a debug too. Oh, and let's also throw in a node ref something from ref. That's what it is. And then you're gonna have the Redis. We'll call it Redis. It's like, yeah, we could call it Redis. I think that'll be fine. So Redis. You probably need public. And then you're gonna be this pool, right? So what are we returning from this? You're returning, oh, a Redis pool, right? So this can now be a Redis pool. When we create new, okay, so I don't want to throw you in here just once, just, okay, so I'll do it like at run, we can create the state. So app state, oh, I've already created it. Hold on. Everything's already working. I don't know what I'm doing. Everything's fine. Everything works as expected. Okay. So, all right. So we're happy there. So setting up Axum state. In order to share the connection, the Redis connection pool with our route handlers, we'll create a centralized server state. I just want to like keep on hammering it in every time chance that I get that whenever we're doing a state in Axum, it's a server state. It is not a client state. Client data does not go into the state. I keep on seeing people want to do that though. And it's like, it makes sense, right? Because the name is state. That's what you want. You want to store state about like requests and other things. But it's like, no, don't. Just what the server needs. That's all. In order to share the Redis connection pool, the route handlers will create a centralized server state. Had an idea, Ryzen Ninja. If you only have one server running and you're connecting to like an SSD, you might be able to just hold the document in memory and then routinely store it back to disk. And then it's just always in memory there for you. And make it really, 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 really fast. And periodically, you could be having like an async process saving that state to disk at all times, but also be working with the one in memory to make it really fast. Because SSDs are like, yeah, they're fast. They're faster than hard drives, but they're still way slower than memory. In order to share the Redis connection pool, the route handlers will need to create a centralized server state. Let's purchase. No, let's create a new file, app state, store. Yeah, so like if it's not too big, you could just leave your CSV in memory and also store it to disk for like emergencies or saving like across, like if you're this only works if you have one server, if you're not scaling horizontally. Oh, Dodi, you were thinking about using in-memory document store, which has persistence option 2. That sounds fun. What is that? RedDB. Minimalistic Rust in-memory embedded database with persistence. So it's an async let's see. Now, can you store it in, can you have it like write out in CSV data is the only question. Data is serialized and deserialized in different SERDE compatible formats. So yeah, because CSV is SERDE compatible. Well, this looks pretty cool. I mean, it's not used too much. It's been a while since it was released last. So I don't know if like you want to trust it for your like company work, but you might be able to like take ideas from it and like implement that. But like an in-memory database can be as simple as literally what you have on disk, except just don't save it to disk except every once in a while. And it's Rust. You can have a thread that's just running every once in a while that you can clone or you can just have it be in an arc and hand it to the thread and say, okay, now just save this to the database. And just like wait every 5 minutes, do that. Or if you have a messaging system, you can say like, okay, message, save it to the database. There's lots of different ways you could sort of handle that. That could be an option. Oh, you have a terabyte of data. Okay. Yeah, that won't be an option then. Okay, a terabyte of data is a lot. Yeah, you're probably then having to stream the reading and opening and dealing with the file, aren't you? Oh, I've never worked with a terabyte worth of data, especially with files before. That's an that's an interesting problem to have. It's a CSV too. Can you imagine accidentally double clicking a terabyte CSV? Excel would like light your computer on fire. Okay, in order to share we'll create a centralized server state. Let's create a new file app state. And we're going to create a state struct and it's not CSV right now. It's on the database. That's why you're paying like 3K plus. You want to remove that export step and the database with it. Okay, so you can basically save your company $3,000 by going to a disk format. I get that. Like I've done like things that are like technically not best practices also with like, money saving is like a big thing, and especially in companies and startups. Like you can it's a huge thing, which I guess makes it a best practice then. And as long as it works and like nothing bad happens, then it's the right thing to do. We're gonna create a state struct and put our Redis pool type in it. All right, so we should have an app state. There it is. So there you go with that. We can create the state. We can instantiate the state in the in like when we write before we create the router. Unreal Realities, hello. How are you doing today? Might look into DuckDB or something. You use it to batch loads in with big amounts of data without issue. Is it cheaper though? I think that's the concern, right? We have to yeah, you're gonna be worried about too many files open at one time. So if we go into like some of the lessons that Amazon has taught us, like specifically AWS has taught us. I don't mean like AWS the service, I mean like the teams that have made AWS. Then what what we the lessons learned about that is breaking it down into multiple processes could be helpful. So, like, imagine, for example, I don't know if this will work for you, but it's a thought. If you have a file and you're worried about opening too many times or you're getting crashes from that, you could have a separate program that all its job is to keep like the file open and closed. And so it basically handles that one file. And it exposes an HTTP API that your other thing that then manipulates the like tells it how to manipulate the files then is doing. And so it's basically microservices at that point in time. But you don't need like all the weight of all the other microservice type things. It's just two programs talking to each other, but instead of like having direct control, they're talking over an API. That way you can scale up some of them, and then you just keep that one solid and like on its own, and it just auto relaunches if it ever fails. So like that's an option too. Alcaeus, hello. You even want to know what our Arc GIS data is going to cost when you migrate that? I am I am lucky. I've not worked for companies in which we've used tremendous amount of data. Um, we keep all of our data, but even when keeping all of our data, we don't have a terabyte in our databases. I did start deleting our auto deleting the test data. Like, okay, we're creating random test users and sort of like using those. I started deleting those at the end of tests. But then when we started testing in production, but like that was mostly to make it so like when I'm searching through users, I don't see a bunch of test users. So yeah, I have not run into that problem yet before, which also is probably the reason why every time that I think about like, okay, I want to get like a data lake and I go and like talk to Snowflake or something like that, they're like, okay, it's going to be like $15,000 a month. I'm like, well, yeah, we might have to create our own data lake because that will be cheaper. It'll be cheaper to pay me to create a data lake than it would be to pay Snowflake their cheapest tier. Just sad. But that's our company. Like we're not really big on data. Like we don't like have things that just like ingest tons and tons and tons of data. Okay, so we have this here. So we're gonna create these like that. So I guess just show the entire run function. Okay, and then next we need to update our create router function to take in the app state. I don't need the quotes around it. And make it available to the route handlers uh, with state method. Okay, so we got that. We don't have you up, so we got you going. So we have our with state. Okay, so now I'm gonna change you. So now this will be like requesting, like using Redis from a route handler. Using Redis from route handler. Okay, so in our route handler, we now can So okay, in a route handler, we can now, what is it called? Access. So we can get this state, get the Redis state out. Capture. Okay, so in a route handler, we can now get the Redis state out, and capture any data needed, any data coming in. I guess like a extract the data necessary to. Ooh, maybe before this, let's I don't think I created like a. Yeah, okay. I didn't create any like gets here. So then before this, we need to create the Redis queries, like create the queries. And before we create our route handlers, need to create our queries to like I guess like CRUD get to manipulate to work with Redis. In this case, we'll create a simple create two queries. One for inserting into the store, the Redis store, and one to get what we inserted out. Okay, so we'll put both of these queries into an I could create like an API. I guess like we create them as like a DB queries. I guess yeah, I'll just create like a queries DB queries. A Redis queries file. Let's actually just name this one here. Okay, so I'm going to create a extract into modules. So I want a new. So I'm going to go into source, Redis, queries.rs. Okay, so we will have a pub. So I guess I'll prepare for that right now. So we're gonna pub maybe insert. Say pub, I meant pub function, and when I meant pub, I went pub async function. Okay, so pub async function insert will take in a key, which is going to be a stir, and then a value, which I mean that could be something in this case. So it could be like a number, it could be a string. I wonder if it could be. What can we put in? Like I've only ever put in strings into Redis. I don't think it matters, right? I can put whatever I want in here. So in set, the value is a v. which v, okay, is 2 Redis args plus send plus sync. And it has to be basically last as long as the like this entire process takes. Okay. So 2 Redis args. Okay, 2 Redis args. It's a trait. Okay, so it needs to be sized. So anything that is sized that is also basically send, sync, and send, and all that fun stuff. So thread safe. Most values will produce exactly one item, but in some cases it might make sense to produce more than one. That's fine. Does Redis itself have a documentation of like what you're allowed to throw in there? Okay. Support for strings, hashes, lists, sets, sorted items, streams, and more. Data types. Okay. So core, strings, lists, sets. That would be. Do we have sets in Rest? We have hashes. That'd be our hash map. Okay, so if I were to say in here, I want you to be like a value. I want you to be a. Basically, it's like something, right? So it's our value. That's a generic. So we need to instantiate value where value implement what is it called? 2 Redis args. Can I grab that? Extract. I need to export that from you. So I need to do something like pub use bb8 Redis 2 Redis args. Okay. Import you. Okay. All right. Doesn't hate this so far. That's fine. Also, I need a pool. I need a pool. It's gonna be a Redis pool. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get a connection. So we're gonna do a pool dot get, await. And so we could unwrap here. We could also do some like proper error handling, but that's fine for right now. You need to be mutable. We could do connection dot, is it insert or what did I do here? I get the connection. Oh, it's set. It's set and it's get. That's what it is. Okay, so we do section dot set. Why won't you help? Oh, right. I think I need to do something like let response. So it's like something like that. Right? So can I do, you still don't know what that is. We can do key and value. What am I missing? No method name set for pooled connection. Okay. Nope. Did not want to go there. I wanted to go here. Connection is not a Redis pool. It's not a Redis pool. What is it? Well, no, wait. A pool is a Redis pool. So a pool is a Redis pool. I get the connection, and then I could just do connection.set. Oh, but I need these Redis async commands. Oh, this is what I need. Redis async commands. So I need to okay. Re-export those too. So we already have these. Okay. There you go. You need to be, value cannot be shared between threads safely. Okay, so I need to tell you to Redis args plus, what is it, sync? Plus send. Okay, so there's that. There we go. Now you're happy. Now this is going to work. Okay, so not super fun. Like it needs a lot of like sort of knowledge about how this is going to work. I almost feel that this is too generic to throw into the application. I feel that it really should go inside of this here. So we're going to have like just a set and get, and the get will be interesting. I might have to have that be generic. So let's turn this into a more generic thing. So we're going to say, okay, set, we're going to have a like a value, which is going to be that to Redis args plus sync plus send. So this value can now be value. So we have our connection. I don't need the other connection right now. Don't need to do the key plus one. Don't need the other connections. We're gonna do connection set, key, and value. You have another question. How do these serverless functions work? Suppose you have n numbers of users And suppose you have 40 workers ran by the users. Another minute, you could have 40 more workers. Now for node scaling, we need like 5 to 10 minutes. How does this work in big websites? Curious here, how do I save money as in not create warm instances, or is there no way? You want node delay for the tasks. So the problem there is the node delay for the tasks. So from my understanding, the way that a lot of big companies do this is by judicious use of queues. So you would say, okay, I want to like I have these things, I want to process this. So you take that work and you send it to a queue. So you basically do a post request to a queue API that adds it into like the things that's going to work. At that point in time, a like it could be a Lambda function, it could be an Express function, it could be an Axum function. It literally doesn't matter. Something is going to be querying the queue and saying, "Hey, is there more work for me to do?" And it could be the other way too. It could be like the queue, depending upon which queue you use, the queue could also hit something else and say, "Hey, I have something. Here's a bunch, like here's an array of jobs. Please go and do that." And so then that will just do that and it's done. And if there's an error, it might put the job back into the queue again to try again later. It all like that's actually like highly dependent upon how the queue works. So like yeah, pub stub style where like okay, I want to like the queue publishes a job and then your runner essentially is like reading from it. The node delay for tasks is the expensive thing. Like if you're willing to have a delay, even if it's a small delay, you put into the queue and then something runs it during like it can be really cheap to have like a single process that's just chunking through those jobs. And like yeah, it will back up a little bit, but then it will just work through them during low times too. You can also scale up during high times and say, okay, I have like 10 processes now working on this queue. But then like, okay, we're done with the queue, back to one. So those are options. We need to do the node scaling if the task is full, which is the issue. Calculate the max difference between minutes. What I'm doing right now is have a fixed number of spare workers, 40 with fixed resources, and let Kubernetes scale. So yeah, it wouldn't that would be where you don't have a fixed number of workers and you let Kubernetes scale like well you have a max, you have a cap of like how much you're willing to pay for, and it's like okay, well I'm gonna scale up to these amount but a minimum of one. So a max number of workers would be like 100 or something like that. Emogolurver. I have no idea how to pronounce that. I am sorry for that, but I hope that it was at least funny. Hello, good morning. How are you doing today? Reserved concurrence is a good way to reduce the delay, but it can get really expensive as if the traffic isn't predictable or consistent. Yes, that's very true. Lambda will give you one server per request, but if they're long tasks, you're going to drop a massive amount of money. That's very true. That's also very true. Uh, ECS is probably the best bang for your buck when it comes to Fargate. ECS is probably the best bang for your buck when it comes to AWS services and reading from a queue. Emo girl lover. Okay. I did not see that, but thank you for that. I'll try to remember that. Oh, they're very long. So yeah, ECS, EKS is like the Kubernetes version of that. But basically it's like you keep something up and then you can say, "Oh, there's a lot of things to run." Or like CPU has gotten like really big for that one instance. Let's create another and another and another. And you just like you go up that way and then okay, back crunch back down again. But from my understanding, that's how big companies do it. Um, because that does keep costs down. You only increase your costs the more jobs you have. And theory is that the more jobs you have, the more money you're making. Like that's the theory, is that you're being paid for these, therefore you can like increase the amount of things that you're working on it. A good way of I don't know if it's like a true metaphor, but like a good way it's sort of like to visualize this is like imagine that all the processes that we're using are actually people that we're hiring. And it's like a factory that you're using. So it's okay, you don't want to hire a bunch of people to work a job, but then I have nothing for them to do. So they're just like sitting there waiting. Um, but you also don't want to have like a thousand requests for something to come in and then have nobody working there. So really what you want to do is the equivalent of seasonal hiring, where you want to hire like 40, 50, 100, just doesn't matter. Not you wanted to hire just enough workers to process the thing and then let them all go as soon as you're done processing it. Which is why we do this with automated tasks, because that would be absolutely, you're just like a really big jerk if you're doing that in, with people. Oh, that's true. That's true, emo. Really long for web requests or tasks, because more than 10 minutes invocation at like 20 times per hour is more expensive in most cases. Absolutely, yes. With something like managed Kubernetes, you're paying for you're paying for the entire thing. You're paying for each node, right? All at once. So if you're able to keep them down. So I haven't used managed Kubernetes myself. I'm like familiar with the idea, but like I haven't used it. So correct me if I'm wrong here. You're paying for each like arm, each thing that Kubernetes is running actively, right? If it's managed. So therefore, if you have 40 workers, you're paying for 40 workers. But if you tell Kubernetes to spin that down to one worker when there's nothing in the queue, but like, okay, there's a bunch of stuff to do, spin that up to a maximum of like 150, then there's a delay at the beginning when you have a lot of things coming in. But as soon as Kubernetes realizes, ooh, we have a lot of work to do, it spins up a bunch of workers. You pay for that, but then it's like I'm done, and then it spins it back down to one, and you're good. You're like you don't pay for too much extra. I think that's the idea, and that's going to be the cheapest while also maintaining the best possible service. But then it's going to come right back. Like, is a small delay while you're waiting for one of them to do its thing, is that okay? And if it's not okay, and they're willing to pay for that being not okay, then that's it. You're just paying for that, and that's what you're doing. So, um, the issue is node scaling. It needs 5 minutes. It shouldn't take 5 minutes, right? I feel like there should be a way to like make that shorter. So it takes. So I'm using ECS, uh, and when I spin something up new, it's like less than a minute. I feel like it's closer to like 30 seconds or so before the load balancer is aware of it and starts using it. Yeah, that's a good question. Is it spinning up a VM, or is it spinning up like a like the equivalent of a Docker image? Because if it's spinning up like a Docker image into a new instance, like a container, that should be seconds. Like you should be measuring that in like, okay, that's taking like 64 seconds to do. It's a whole VM. Oh, that's the issue there. I don't believe that when you're working with like scale, like automatic scaling stuff, you work with, well, okay, that's not completely true. Oh, Apparently, I need to keep my mouse moving long enough. Okay, so my understanding, when we're working with VMs, usually what you're doing is you're working with a VM and then a hypervisor of VMs, and then each VM has a bunch of like the equivalent of Docker containers inside of them. So each VM would be running an unknown number of processes to process the, to connect to and get things out of the queue and run them. So like you spin up one VM and then that runs like 10 instances of your API essentially. And then it's like, oh, we need more. And so it spins up another VM and another 10 instances. Yeah, if you're comparing, what's the FAS? It's something as a service. It's I don't I don't know F as a service. But like as a VM, yeah, it's like VMs are slow. They're full operating systems, and it does take forever. Like 5 minutes is good for spinning up a VM. Function as a service. That's it. I've never actually, like, in my mind, I don't have that as like fast in my mind. I don't know why. Like I've never. I guess I just in my mind I just think of Lambda even if I'm not using AWS. So, interesting. Thanks for that. SaaS is systems as a service. Bass is you forget. Oh, well, is it because you dropped it? Uh, Zerio, hello. Lambda does cost 0.75 times the Kubernetes, but it's a big jump. It would be a pain probably, but not worth it. So if you have the time for this, you can use something called the Strangler pattern to do major architectural changes to an application. So the way you do the Strangler pattern is you would say, okay, I'm gonna like take this one tiny little piece and put it over into like let's say Lambda, and then in your Kubernetes, whenever a request comes in to Kubernetes for that thing, you can just basically say, oh, there's just one of these, and it just takes that and forwards it to the Lambda request, and then Lambda responds, and then it just like forwards back out. And then later on, you can update it where it just like skips Kubernetes altogether and goes straight to Lambda, but at least it allows you to take the functionality and replace that for right now. So it then slowly over time you're strangling out all of the functionality from one area to another, and you're breaking it out. So that's the strangler pattern. That's probably the best way to do really big architectural changes and not break everything all at once. You can technically run the Lambda runtime on Kubernetes if you want to keep the familiar of Lambda. Oh yeah, that's something it could do. Oh, you're thinking of PaaS. Yeah, platform as a server. I remember that one. Although I haven't done that in a long time. Flammy, hello. Welcome, welcome. How are you doing today? What is the font? I can. This is. We are in. We're gonna look at Alacrity. Alacrity. The font. Let's go find it. Actually, I could just search for font. Nope. Oh, font is Code Nerd Font Mono. So this is the setup that I have for that. They're not really, and size 24. It's not really anything special for that. Thank you. Yeah, this is like I looked, so for Alacrity and for Zellage, or no, sorry, for Zellage I needed a nerd font just to work. So I looked through a bunch of them. I was like, okay, Fair Code looks the best of the ones that I like really quickly looked through, so I just went with that one. All right. You feel like they did have base at one point, but at risk of the joke again, they probably dropped the base. Fair Code is the most popular nerd font. Yeah, they have a lot of them. They do have a lot of them. I had to really like do the double drop because I feel like I didn't get that reaction the first time, but probably because I pronounced it bass, and that's just wrong. Nobody drops a bass. All right. I feel like we have a little bit more to do here, and then we can do recordings of stuff. So I have I have an idea. What I want to do is I want to set up the queries. I want to set up this entire article for connecting to. I want to create like a micro course. Like this is gonna be one of the tests that we have for micro courses. I want to create a micro course for connecting to Redis, connecting to Postgres, and then doing them both at the same time. And so I'm gonna make that available on the LMS, and then I'm gonna just make that a free course that you just go to and use that, and just sort of like see how that works. And then it will be like people you consume it for free on the LMS, and that way like I can get some feedback on like, hey, how is that going? So I think it'll be a sort of a good first test with this. And maybe like drum up some interest in the LMS too. You saw the Minecraft terminal font as a meme, but have since stuck with it. Wait, is that good? You enjoy a nice mono font yourself, so you default to JetBrains yourself. We use JetBrains. Stacking, was that your suggestion? Years ago, we did the JetBrains font when we were in VS Code. But then when I started using like things like Zellage, it's like, nope, you have to use a nerd font. So it's like, okay, fine, we'll do that. Uh, okay, so we're gonna finish this. I'm gonna do a Postgres connection one. We're gonna do a both together, and then I'm gonna wrap that up, put that into like a course. JetBrains has a nerd font. Oh, maybe have to take a look at that sometime. Maybe someday, perhaps. Um, there were so many nerd fonts in the list of nerd fonts that I was like, okay, this is too much. I'm just gonna choose one and then just go with it. So maybe someday. Let's see. So that being said, Dev Spajas is still streaming. Getting ready for a major update. Now, Dev Spajas doesn't do Rust development, but Dev Spajas has rated us a few times. So I'd like to return the favor. He does a lot of really interesting programming stuff. So specifically makes a star like a starship based live program. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of fun. I haven't played it, but I've watched it, and I want to play it. But I have too many games on my list right now to get it. So I'm gonna go ahead and set up a raid for him. You have slight dyslexia, and a monofont really helps. When you read a book, sometimes you have to use a ruler because I have dyslexia too. I think we've chatted about it before. And one of the things is like really large fonts I've noticed is like, hey, this is actually kind of nice. But like the color choice too, and then I don't know if you noticed, I do this with Helix. So nice. It like shows me what line I'm on, and it's so much easier to read. I love it. All right. Today is Friday, so no streams for the weekends. Next week is going to be potentially a little bit interesting, because I've switched to contract work with my day job. I have a lot more time to do streams in the afternoon now. So I just have to figure out what I want my schedule to be. So I don't know if I'm going to be streaming on a morning on Mondays or if I'm going to continue doing that. So I'm going to think about it. I'll announce out on Discord probably on Sunday or so what I'm going to be doing and what I'm going to try for the week for next week. And then we're just going to figure things out, see how they're going. So with that, oh, thank you, Chantilly, for the Discord link. So yeah, if you want to get that announcement out, join the Discord. I'll put it into the general channel. So with that, have a great Friday and weekend, everybody, and I will see you all next time, whenever that is. Oh yeah, bye.